All right, so welcome everybody for this webinar. I'm Stefano Maffulli, and I'm the community manager at the OpenStack Foundation. And I'm here with Sanjeeva Nath from Zagil, CEO and founder, that will help through the morning with a demo of the pilot that we've been doing. So we've been working together to provide a better view of OpenStack projects and how things that are scattered among different companies can be put together. And this morning, Sanjeev, if you go to the next slide, we'll go through this project that we worked on with Zagil, give an overview of that together with a brief introduction to OpenStack. Then we'll see the demo of the pilot with WicketSmart powering it. And Sanjeev will give a brief overview also of Zagil, and we'll look at the next step of where we can go with this project, how it can better serve the OpenStack community, and leave some time for Q&A after that. Next. So just many of you probably are already familiar with OpenStack, but just to reiterate, what OpenStack is trying to achieve is to become the cloud computing platform that can meet needs for private and public providers of clouds. It wants to be simple to implement and massively scalable. It started 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and with that intention in mind to become ubiquitous. So it wants to be large, it wants to be huge, it wants to have a large participation of the ecosystem, from developers that build the platforms to users that deploy the platform and other users that consume the APIs, consume the platform. And we work on code, and we have OpenStack, a large believing communities and participation. Next. And being born with that in mind, with that DNA in mind of large ecosystem, we have seen large growth in our community, from conference attendees to number of developers growing month over month. The latest release is just been out this week with participation from over 300 developers from almost 60 companies. The OpenStack Foundation that launched this last month has seen contributions coming in from a lot of large corporations. All major Linux distributions are supporting OpenStack. And large corporations are developing on top of OpenStack, are contributing to OpenStack in many aspects. Next. So what it provides is basically three building blocks, main building blocks, and shared services, so that OpenStack can be considered somehow a cloud operating system. It's a full-blown operating system that you can imagine sitting on top of tons hardware across a whole data center. And if you go next, we'll look at the capabilities with compute that provides tools of computing on demand. And the project name is called Nova. Block storage, which is volumes. It was in Nova, and now it's in its own project code named Cinder. Object storage, which is Swift. It provides petabytes of storage on standard hardware, and network, virtual networking capabilities, so that provide OpenStack pieces through Quantum can have fully automated networks, virtual networks. And then on top of this, there is a web dashboard with self-service and role-based capabilities so that users can self-provision their own virtual machines and get their own block storage and network storage configured and set up. And administrators can also run tasks through it. And the shared services like authentication and image service called Keystone and Glam. And all these pieces together have their own, are developed through public community-based management, where the technical leaders are elected by the developers themselves. There is no mandated like paper play type of configuration inside the community. It's all based on merit, on technical merit, and there is all there are no forces. I mean, the forces that make all the development happen are all based on the technical meritocracy. Next. So that's a lot of code. That there is a lot of decisions to be made. There is a lot of pieces that fly around inside the OpenStack community developing OpenStack, and they all the community picked and uses tools to help manage all of this, and they're all different, and they all sit in different places. So we have a wiki powered by Moin that got some of the information in it, like for tracking some parts of the documentation, the discussions for proposals of new features or discussions about how to do things inside the community. Launchpad is the main repository nowadays for requirements, blueprints, and bug tracking. It also maintains the identity of all the members of the OpenStack developers community. Then there's the Git repository, the version control system, hosted on GitHub and Gerrit itself, where we keep all the code with all the changes, and we keep also the documentation in there. Gerrit with core code review. Scala. It's fairly new. Jenkins, it does all the gating for all the commits, and then we have email lists and forums in other places for collaboration. So all of this content is separated, and there is very little interaction between these different silos. The identity is the single sign-on is basically the only thing that works across all of these systems, and other correlation of information among all of these is complicated and separated, and it's hard to find a correlation between what a bug and a discussion that happened on a mailing list or feature and how that the decision to implement that feature came through, or who has been working on that feature. So this complexity is something that as community manager I have to deal with every day, and I always wanted to have something where I could get an overview of the community, of everything that is happening in the community, and try to make sense of all together, because I get questions from management sometimes that ask me, why did we get to implement that feature? Who has been working on that feature, and how did we came to that decision to implement it? How much did it cost to implement it? And how much did it cause pain when we got through it, and how much value did we get out of it after we implemented it? And these are kind of questions that nowadays, with systems that are scattered all across different, that are not collaborating, where you cannot extract information easily from it, it's very hard to answer. So next. It's so these are the main challenges of giving visibility to all the the work that is being put into OpenStack as a project by different actors in it is what led to work on the pilot with Smart and Agile. Wanted to find add interoperability among all these projects, the possibility to trace back what happened, who did something, why did that something happen, and also this is to allow better collaboration within the community members, so that also everybody that is involved can get a better knowledge of its actions. Next one. So with the pilot, we started to the idea of integrating Launchpad with the bug management system and the requirement management with the version control system, and put these information correlated together inside a dashboard that in the pilot is powered by Confluent, and the correlation is managed by the Wicked Smart context server. Next one. So the idea is to, for the pilot, is to answer simple questions. So who are the most active users? What's their trend into activity? Have they been contributing more or less? What is happening to bugs? Are they getting fixed over time? Are they just increasing in quantity of open bugs? And also the other question is how to correlate information among companies and users. For the future and going beyond, the idea is to make this information available in a cohesive way publicly, but also make it possible that it can be combined with private information inside the corporations that are contributing to OpenStack. So, for example, have the possibility to from a feature request that comes through a customer that is therefore filed inside the corporate Salesforce, then have that feature request inside Salesforce will generate a lot of action inside the community on the public side of OpenStack project, and retrace back that the work being done in the community back to the Salesforce feature request is something that I probably is interesting and could be one way to move forward with this pilot. Also answer questions like how much did the company put inside the OpenStack community in terms of involvement, code, and all of that, and how much did they get back from these contributions. So start to illustrate or make it visible, make more visible the value that the community provides. Next. Yeah, I think this is time for Sanjeev to give a demo and talk a little bit more about what we tried to achieve.
Great, thank you, Stefano. Greetings, everyone. This is Sanjeev Nath. So what I will talk about is really two things here. One is to demonstrate some of the work that we did for the pilot that Stefano had described earlier in terms of demonstrating some of the capabilities that could be achieved with Wicked Smart. And then second, I will also explain how it achieves this level of integration. And one of the things to point out is that Wicked Smart is open source and available on source boards. All of the features and capabilities that you will see that are implemented in this pilot are built into the product. And we definitely encourage open source communities in particular to adopt it and contribute to Wicked Smart's evolution. So in terms of the pilot demo, what I want to show is how we have unified information from two sources, GitHub and Launchpad, into a context, which is the Wicked Smart context server. and then presented this information automatically within Confluence. Everything you will see is automatically generated in terms of wiki pages and wiki content. And of course, Confluence then further provides an environment for collaboration, for adding comments, for having discussions there related to particular objects such as bugs or check-ins or users, organizations, and repositories. And then also, you can embed reports and dashboards, for example, within Confluence, so the whole community can come together into a single environment where all information that is relevant to them exists, and they can search for things rather than having to go to specific tools to look for information. So the demo consists of a number of different views. For example, view by organization and committers. You can follow. We'll show you how you can follow a commit to what bug it's related to. What are the other activities of that committer? What are the activities related to the organization? And then, of course, finally, we'll talk about faceted search. This is really very powerful because now you have information that has been captured from multiple sources, and you can find it in one place. You can look for it in one place, and you can look for specific categories or concepts, if you will. You can search for a bug, or you can search for a commit, or you can search for a particular user or a comment, and so it's much more precise and faster. So let's go to the demo. And what I will show you here, as I mentioned earlier, is you're looking at Confluence Wiki, where we have where we are presenting all of the content. And so in the home space, for example, for this particular pilot project, we embed a couple of reports, daily commit activity here and daily bug resolution activity here. So this is, again, all dynamically generated information. So as activities are occurring within Launchpad, within GitHub, and then as we integrate other tools, all of that information will automatically be presented here. Then you also see some anchor points on the right, organizations, repositories, users, and of course you can add additional ones for bugs, for projects, requirements, and so on. And and again, as I mentioned earlier, all of the content that you'll see here is automatically generated. So let's go to organization, for example. So now we'll explain how we achieve this. So what we have done here is, if we look at GitHub primarily represents commit activity by user, and users have some optional relationship to organizations. And users have some contact information like email and so on. And then, of course, in the comments within the commit, there may be also some reference to a bug which exists in Launchpad. So we have done reconciliation here wherever it was possible, just as a way of demonstrating, where we related a commit to certain files, commit to user, and then user to organization. And also in situations where there was no information related to the organization, then we went into Launchpad to see if we could find some correlation. And then so trying to bring all of that together into a single store, if you will, so that you can now start to have different kinds of views for each one of these objects. So here you can see a view by organization. So here are all the organizations, their IDs, their logins, and whatever emails have been registered. And then here's all of the commit and bug-related activity for the organization. So the commit comes from GitHub, and then the orange stuff here is all of the orange bars are basically all the bug fixes that have been picked up from Launchpad. And this data is actually for a particular period in time, although in a normal deployment, this would be real-time information that you will capture, and it will be showing you whatever the current level of activity exists. So now some of the other things, let's take a look at one of these organizations, for example. We can go to Rackspace Hosting. And now you will see, again, as I had pointed out earlier, these are form-based templated pages. So all pages will have a consistent look and feel, and they're very easily customizable. But the idea that we wanted to present here is that you can have all of the information relevant to the organization automatically generated and presented. So however, the number of commits that have been done by Rackspace hosting, the number of bugs, how many bugs are assigned to that organization, potentially to different individuals, login information, email, blog, and so on. Who are the contributors for this organization? What are the repositories that they have, that they own? The commits, the resolved bugs, the history here, for example. So between January and June is the data that we have chosen for this pilot. And then, of course, activities on a monthly basis. So, this is again, as I said, this is all generated. Now, the other thing here to look at is, the Wicked Smart plugin for Confluence gives you these smart forms so that you can add additional attributes related to that particular object or concept. So here, if we want to capture organization description, notes, and any other information, we can extend it within the wiki pages context of that organization, regardless of whether the organization was picked up from Launchpad or from GitHub. So that's the general implementation. Now we can go back to the home page and look at some of the other information that we've captured. So, for example, repositories. So you can go to the repositories page and you'll see the repositories and branches that exist out there. So for multiple projects and multiple repositories, you will see that single anchor page, if you will, that will give everybody information about all of the details. And then again, since we were only working with Nova, so here's a page that describes something about Nova. What is the repository key, URL, who's the owner, what's the site, and what are all the branches, and any other information that needs to be captured. So again, in this particular case, we have pulled all of this from GitHub itself and created formal relationships within the contact server that describe the repository. And then again, also finally, the users. So you can start with the organization and go to users, or you can just look at the users themselves to see who are all the active users out there in terms of bug fixes, in terms of check-ins, and so on. And so, for example, if we were to look at, for instance, any particular user, Brian Walden, for instance, and this information related to Brian Walden is automatically pulled in from GitHub, from any activity that Brian may have been involved in within Launchpad itself. So some description and notes related to Brian, commit activity. And now you can see even more information, like what are the commits, there's some description related to the commit, and what bugs, if any, have been referenced for that particular commit. And again, all these links will take you directly to the source of this information. And if we were to, for example, integrate Garrett into this mix, then you would also be able to see any code reviews that have been done and who participated in the code reviews. So this is one aspect of this integration where information from two different sources has been pulled in, reconciled, and captured in a formal way using a very rich meta model, so that now you can represent it in so many different views, if you will. Then the second aspect of it that's also very powerful is the search. So, for example, within Confluence itself, now we can search for various things that may either come from Launchpad or from GitHub. So, for example, if I want to search for, and this is what we call faceted search, because you're actually searching for specific concepts. So you can search for a commit, you can search for a requirement, you can search for a bug. At any point in time, you're searching for something very specific. So we can say we want to look for commits by Vishwananda. And now it will show me all the commits that he has been involved in. But when you see the search, you'll see that it's, first of all, it's only returning commit results. It's not matching on particular text strings. So these are all commits, and the commits are actually done by Vishwananda. And then in both cases, it turns out the commits are related to a bug. So you can click on the bug, and the Agile semantic repository provides you with graph-based knowledge, graph knowledge base, if you will, which then allows you to traverse. So we can, if we see that this commit is related to a bug, so here's the information about the bug. And the bug actually was reported by Jesse Andrews, so you can see something about Jesse Andrews, for example. What's the ID, any attributes, what are the commits that Jesse has done, what bugs Jesse's been assigned, and what bugs has he reported, and so on and so forth. And so you can continue to navigate across the graph in this model, in this way, as you're exploring all the different activities. So this gives you sort of some semblance of traceability, if you will, because you can really trace all of these different events and activities and people across various objects. And then, of course, there's also the idea of just being able to do search. So if I'm going to look for a bug, for example, and I can say, show me all the bugs related to live migration, then I will get all bugs related to live migration. So in this case, it's just doing a text string match, but it's actually matching against particular concepts. Now, if I can also say I want to search for commits related to live migration, and I'll see all the commits that have been done related to that. In this particular case, this commit also has an associated bug. And then, of course, you can, as before, you can continue to explore in terms of who's the reporter of that bug, what else have they reported, for example, and so on and so forth. So that's actually the demo. Now let me come back to explaining how this works. So as Stefano had pointed out earlier, this is basically the architecture. If you look on the left, you've got Launchpad and GitHub, for example, and we've got, so for all of these different tools, whether they're hosted or whether they're on-premise, WickedSmart provides connectors, and you can also build connectors on your own. And again, that's really for the open source community in particular to contribute more and more integration potential for this platform. From each one of these connectors, you can see that there are certain concepts that they represent. For example, Launchpad, as Stefano had pointed out, represents project requirements, bugs, and so on. GitHub represents check-ins, commits, and so on, and users and organizations. So we're pulling all of that information into a contact server, and then from there, that information can be retrieved by any of the tools. So this gives you both integration and interoperability. So in this pilot, you only saw how information is just pulled into Confluence, but it is also, of course, possible that that information can be rendered back within GitHub or Launchpad, or Confluence itself can be a contributor to information, for example, any description or comments related to organizations or commits. WickedSmart, at a higher level, is a information unification platform. So it comes with a very elaborate knowledge model that describes all the different concepts related to software engineering, everything from projects, requirements, test cases, bugs, check-ins, and so on and so forth across all phases. And so that knowledge model is what is used to start reconciling information that can be captured from multiple sources. And then the connectors further allow you to do some of the reconciliation in terms of matching and parsing as it comes in, so that you can customize depending upon what you're pulling and from what tool. So in this case, for example, you've got Launchpad, you've got GitHub, Git, potentially Jenkins, and you can capture other tools here as well. And so all of those tools can be unified in a single repository. And so then the information is not only contextual, but it also has very formal relationships captured. And let's talk a little bit, just introduction to Zagil. Zagil, I founded Zagil in 2006. Our first product was launched in 2009. The mission behind Zagil is what I've described already. It is to integrate themes, tools, processes, and knowledge, particularly across heterogeneous tool environment across geographies. We have partners with Atlassian, Zendesk, HP, Salesforce, Red Hat, as well as system integrator partners. I urge you to look us up on InfoWorld and SD Times. There's been some very interesting press coverage, and as well as our customers. So WickedSmart platform benefits, just really briefly. There's instant integration, so you install the connectors, you point them to the context server, and things start to automatically get captured and interrelate. It's smart solutions, meaning there's template-based composite applications you can create even within Confluence itself that starts to integrate the environment and allow you to much richer application behavior in terms of process flow. And then, of course, the information is insightful because now you're not just doing text searches and finding all matches within wiki pages, for example, but you're actually doing faceted search where you're looking for very precise information. And you can have dashboards and reports embedded. We showed you dashboards within Confluence. We showed you search within Confluence. But the same search could be implemented as an open source gadget, for example. The dashboards and reports could be captured within a portal or any other application. And of course, WickedSmart, not only is it open source, but it's based on open standards. So WickedSmart, is based on Jena, which is a semantic application platform. It's an Apache project. WickedSmart, the queries and reports that you saw, for example, are based on Sparkle language, which is W3C standard, and the repository itself is an RDF XML. So Stefano, on that note, I will turn it back to you for next steps and conclusion.
All right. So, so thank you for the demo. I guess we have quite a few questions, so I want to skip through rapidly about the potential next steps and how to proceed further, and then we can go rapidly to answering the questions. So go to the next slide, please. So we started with fairly simple ideas, integration of, started with integrating only Launchpad and GitHub, and if we want to go on and we would like to keep integrating more of those, of the systems that are around OpenStack, that OpenStack uses, the community uses. And we also want to start thinking of what to do next. I mean, once we have integrated these systems, what questions do we want the community, what questions would you want to find an answer in this unified view? Next one. And one of the ideas that we had in mind was to have something like a public portal for everyone, so where everybody, including members of the foundation or non-members of the foundation, can go look and have a unified view of what's happening inside OpenStack across the project and across the tools that are used to develop OpenStack. So they can see what's happening, they can see who's working on what and all of that. And then have another view also to provide that information inside the corporations that are contributing to OpenStack, so that they can avoid, for example, duplicating bugs between their internal bug trackers and the public bug tracker that sometimes I noticed it happen when it's a customer that files a bug that is not simply a bug for a particular implementation of OpenStack or a particular distribution, for example, OpenStack, but it's a generic bug. So that bug ends up being duplicated somewhere else, and the history of that bug cannot be traced back or cannot easily be traced back into the origin of that artifact inside the project. So that sort of bridge between corporate content with the OpenStack community side, something that I think may be interesting. But for all of this, I would like to have feedback from the community, from the individual members of the foundation, individual developers, to the corporations themselves. We go to the next slide. And we put out a survey with very simple questions that I would like you to give a look at and provide your feedback. Tell me what you would like to see. And of course, there is the OpenStack, the blog post that's got more links to the further discussions at the OpenStack Summit next week or in 10 days. Go back. Right. So I hope to see most of you in San Diego, but I saw that there are questions. So I will repeat the questions so that we have them in the recording, and Sanjeev, you can answer them because they're mostly for you.
Okay.
There's a question from Tom that asks, capture and integrate that is mentioned as a capability of WikitSmart. What's the travel time between capture and when the views would be available? I think it relates to the, yeah.
So the question is between capturing information from tools and having the view, the lag time between that?
Right. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, yeah. So it is in WikitSmart. This would be you would expect to have it in real time, because WikitSmart's model is primarily transactional. So the connectors act as listeners, and they are listening in on all the transactions, any activities that occur within the tools themselves. All activities are captured, and of course they're made available and they're accessible in real time.
Right. So, and John Dickinson is asking if the tool can associate bugs with commits, with email list threads and Twitter conversations.
Yes, that is the direction that we'd want to go. And of course, the key here is to try to find all the potential leads that allow us to reconcile between them. For example, between the check-in and bug, the association was by scanning for a bug ID within the check-in itself, and then using that to go to Launchpad and receive information about the bug. So it would be the same in terms of Twitter and other social media tools, for example.
Right. So another question is, from Alvaro, how the data is gathered from different data sources?
We are actually capturing data from the applications, not so much from data sources, although it is also possible. So we do not actually go, in this case, the information is captured from GitHub and Launchpad, and we're using REST interfaces for that. So you can do queries against the tool directly or against the application in that case, and pull information. But as I said, there's a number of different mechanisms that WikitSmart allows. So it all depends upon what you want to integrate. You can just pull in CSV files if you happen to have some static data available. You can have connectors, which we also provide for Jira, for Confluence, Salesforce, and Zendesk, where it's actually each one of the connectors is a listener, and so as activities are happening in these applications, they're captured in real time. And then you can also basically use REST interfaces to pull information if you want to do this, for example, for seeding data or for just pulling it one time.
Another question by John Dickinson is, how is the metadata with each content source created?
Sorry, I didn't hear that clearly.
So how do you create the metadata for each content source?
Right. So the metadata does not represent the content source. The metadata actually represents is the knowledge model that represents the core concepts. So WiketSmart currently provides, I think, close to about 20 ontologies or meta models, if you will, that represent all these core concepts like project requirements, test cases, and so on, as I had mentioned. And so they cover all phases of a software engineering lifecycle, including process, not only application. So the metadata is not specific to any particular application. The information from GitHub, for example, was not captured in a GitHub-specific repository. And what that means, actually, and it's a really good question, because what it means is that if you were using 5 different potentially version control systems, Subversion and GitHub and a few others, for instance, then information from all of them would show up in the same place. I mean, a commit is a commit. It doesn't matter what application it comes from. And so you would still see a commit, but the source may be GitHub or your local Subversion environment or something else. Same thing with bug. I mean, it could have been a bug from Launchpad, or it could have been a bug like in Jira. It doesn't matter. It shows up and it's captured as a bug.
Cool. Are there any more questions? Yeah, everybody's still alive, listening? All right. So, as I said, this is a very important project for I believe, for the OpenStack community. Being so complex, being so large, and growing at this rate, I expect the complexity not to diminish, but to keep going up. And we need to have better tools to manage, to know what's going on, to understand what's going on. And I definitely ask you to go and give us feedback. Let me know what you think of this of this pilot in particular. What you think in general the OpenStack Foundation can do to make it easier for you to understand what's going on inside OpenStack, what's going on inside your organization, your team, your group, how to reduce the problems created by this complexity. And the survey is very simple, it's very fast, and please go and answer those questions. And we will have another session at the OpenStack Summit, October 17 in San Diego. So if you're interested in the topic, please join that session too. We will keep continuing, and hope you enjoyed this. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sanjay.
Yeah, thank you, Stefano.
Yeah, we'll put the presentation on SlideShare too, so you'll have reference for this.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.